Much like what's happened in our food system, our information diet has become toxic. The news and social media we consume is filled with half-truths, anger-generating sound bites, and mind-numbing nonsense that either spaces us out or riles us up, and it's all designed to lure us back for more. It's time to take back control. And this podcast is a 5-minute step in the right direction. 3 days a week, I'll share a short story to help renew your belief in the people and the world around you. Monday, a story from the past. Wednesday, the present. And Friday, you'll head into the weekend with a story to keep you optimistic about our future. Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to My Good 3. Happy Wednesday. A few weeks ago, I was at the outdoor retailer REI returning a gift. And as I was leaving, there was a woman in front of me carrying several bags in her hands. If you've ever been to an REI, you know they have these large, heavy wooden doors with ice axes for door handles. As she approached the front doors, it was clear she'd need to put down her things in order to open up one of the doors so she could leave. So I did what I think most people would have done in that situation. I hurried around her and pushed the door open and held it so she didn't need to drop her things. The look she gave me was this expression of surprise and elation, as if she'd never seen someone do something so kind. It was no big deal, so it got me thinking, why was she so surprised? Are small, kind gestures like this between strangers disappearing? Maybe they are. I did some research on trends and random acts of kindness, and couldn't find anything. But what I landed on was a website called Sunny Skies that gives readers a way to send in stories of these random kind acts. So I wanted to take this episode and share just a handful of stories sent in from everyday people of things that occurred just last week. A woman in New York had made her way onto the subway. She had injured her finger, so she was wearing a small splint with a ladybug sticker on it. A little boy who was sitting in one of the seats stared at her finger while she stood holding onto the rail. Without anyone prompting him, he jumped up from his seat and offered it to her. So she took it. And then as she enjoyed the comfortable ride, as the child stood holding onto the rail, the train bouncing him around, he looked at her and gave her a smile. A woman was by herself filling up her car with gas at night in the cold. Her elderly father had just fractured his neck in a fall, and her mind was focused on what she'd need to do to take care of him. She was out of wiper fluid, and she was struggling to add the new fluid to her car. A man filling his tank next to her came over and told her he'd be happy to take care of it, and for her to go back inside the car to stay warm. The man finished filling the washer fluid and left, leaving her sobbing in the car, because she was so touched by his small gesture at a time when she really needed it. A woman in Oklahoma had just found out that her father's heart transplant in Texas didn't go well, and he was placed in a medical coma. She woke up at 3:30 in the morning to make the drive from Oklahoma to visit him in the hospital in Texas. Rattled and exhausted from the stress, she pulled into the first Starbucks drive-thru she could find that was open. She placed her order and pulled up to the window to find that the person who was in front of her had already paid for her coffee and left. The gesture meant so much to her. It gave her the strength to keep a positive mindset for the rest of the drive, and it carried her throughout the day and beyond. A woman was at the checkout at a giant grocery store. When it came time for her to enter her card, the man behind her introduced himself as Steve and said he'd like to get them for her. He placed his credit card on the reader, and just like that, he had paid for her groceries. She was in shock. She thanked him and then went outside and cried. After a long day at work, a woman drove home through snowy conditions. She didn't have time to shovel the driveway that morning, so when she pulled back into the driveway, her car got stuck in the snow. She did everything she could to free it, but no luck, when suddenly, a man stopped his car in the road, jumped out, and pushed with her to help free the car. Just as quickly, he was gone, and she didn't even have a chance to thank him. As I think about the surprised look on the face of the woman at the REI, I should be fair, there's a good chance my hair was standing up or I had something hanging out of my nose, which is common. Maybe she doesn't get out much. Not sure. But I'm convinced these incidents where people are randomly helping one another out are still happening all around us. We need them, especially when things are uncertain and there's an anxious buzz in the air. It's up to us to not let some of the toxicity we're seeing in the news or listening to on a podcast blur our belief in the one thing we can always rely on: one another. Thank you for listening. I realize this podcast won't be successful without your help. So if you'd like to rate it, or better yet, review it, wherever you get your podcasts, that would really help. And if you're on Instagram, go to @mygood3, THREE, to vote each episode up or down. I'm also excited to read more Good 3 stories from listeners. So just go to our website, mygood3.com, and submit a story of your own from the past, present, or future, or all three. And maybe I'll use it in an episode. Thanks again. Here's to hoping My Good 3 can set the stage for your good week.